Good afternoon. You're listening to Gambling with an Edge. Now here are your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest today is gaming attorney Bob Nersesian, one of our favorite guests here on Gambling with an Edge, member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame. Bob Nersesian, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Well, thanks for having me again. It's always fun.
Well, I'm glad. Before we get into our questions for Bob, Richard and I have an announcement to make, and that is the end of Gambling with an Edge is coming. Whether it is going to be in 1 month or in 3 months, or we're going to skip a week or two along the way, we're not sure, but it is coming sooner rather than later. Richard and I have both decided that we've had a nice run. We've enjoyed this, and we're ready to go do something else with our lives. So we're going to be inviting some of our regulars to come back for a farewell tour. Bob Nersesian is the first of those. He's been on, I don't know whether it's 20 times, 25 times, but this is his probably his farewell tour. He may have a second farewell tour. I don't know. But anyway, we're calling it quits. Richard, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, we've been doing it 12 years, and it's just gotten to the point where it's become quite a grind, trying to find a guest every week, producing the show. And so, it's time to move on to other things. And like you said, we're going to have some of our most frequent and favorite guests back, and Bob Nersesian certainly is at the top of that list. So, and the important thing is, whenever our very last show is, we'll probably end with a mailbag. So we need your final questions we may do 2 mailbag shows because Bob's going to be out of town on a cruise. So maybe we'll do one while he's out of town that we can pre-record. But anyway, we need your questions. So send us those. And if you have any other people that are on our list of people to come back one last time, and I haven't told them that. They're probably hearing this. This is going to be news to them. But certainly our sponsors, Captain Jack, Colin Jones, people from videopoker.com, and Anthony Curtis, of course, for sure. So if there are other guests that we should have back one last time, let us know. That doesn't mean we'll get them, but we'll at least take it into consideration.
And there are other guests who have said, yeah, I'd like to do it. I need to schedule it and stuff like that. Well, either schedule it fast or it ain't going to happen. So, all right, let's get to our questions. A local gaming regulation states that the maximum payout for any single pull on a machine is $1,000. Player A found a machine where a progressive jackpot meter displayed on the amount in excess of $250,000. It is not known what caused the machine to display this amount, but it's a near certainty that it didn't get this high through normal play. The triggering event for the progressive is expected to occur about once every 45 minutes. So the player decided to play the game to see what would happen. They had no expectation of getting paid the amount posted, and they recognized that their play might get voided due to the machine malfunction when the jackpot hit. When the jackpot hit, the machine displayed max win and paid out $1,000 and put the remainder of the $250,000 into the backup pool. Under normal operation, when the jackpot reaches the $1,000 max, excess jackpot contributions are tracked in a backup pool and are added to the starting amount for the next jackpot. Adding $250,000 to the backup pool established a $1,000 progressive payout indefinitely, resulting in a game worth approximately $1,500 per hour. Knowing the casino could not sustain losing this much for very long, player A gave it as much play as he felt the casino could take from a single player. They then shared the play with player B, who did the same. Later on, player C found the machine and also exploited the play. Player C had no contact with players A and B and no knowledge of how the machine got into the state. So, question for Bob Nersesian. Could any of the three players be considered criminally negligent in this scenario?
Yeah. They could also, well, wait a minute. First of all, not negligent. Negligence is never a crime. It would be criminally responsible. So, could they be? Yes. What are the odds? It's doubtful, and there's not enough information in the question. Where is the question lacking information? This is going to sound a little strange, but well, first of all, do you guys know the size of the casino? Is it a storefront?
I know nothing more than what I've just read.
In a mining town in Colorado, or is it a major in Detroit or Baltimore or what?
Yeah, we have no clue. But I mean, my guess, I've never heard of a jackpot that could not be more than $1,000. So my guess is that it'll be a smaller, place.
Yeah, I was reading into that too. But here's what I'm seeing that you guys haven't considered. But I know both of you know it. Progressive jackpots, for example, in Nevada, are owned by the players, not the casino. And what happens is there comes a point in time when a progressive has just been sitting around so long and the play is stopped on the machine that it's on, and the casino needs to take down that progressive. So they have to find a way to put that back in the hands of the players. And to me, it sounds like leeching out this $250,000. We don't know what the start amount on the jackpot was, do we? Just that it'll always default to $1,000?
Yeah, I would assume it would normally start at $200 or something and then build up, and it's not going to get over $1,000.
Okay.
But now the backup pool is such that it'll always be 1,000 indefinitely anyway.
Unless that 250 is used up, and what they're trying to do is leech out a progressive that they've taken down and gotten permission from whatever their gaming commission is to spread it out that way, rather than just putting it on another machine and giving it to one player. Let it be shared by a lot of players playing for this excessive $1,000 jackpot. And this way they can take down the machine that's no longer getting play, and they can return the 250 to the players. We don't know if that happened or not. But if that's the case, then obviously not only did they not do any legal, they did everything legal and exactly what was expected. And the guy who walked away thinking that this was losses may have been completely wrong. This was a return of players' money, and he could have played it out. He could have killed it, and they might not have even cared. Strange answer. You weren't expecting that one, right?
Yeah, so
that is actually part of the discussion in a case that I did in front of the Nevada Gaming Control Board, Alper versus Sahara. And in Alper versus Sahara, a $100,000 jackpot had popped up where ordinarily the jackpot should have been, on this particular part, a sub-progressive under the main progressive that should have been $250, and it came up as $100,000. And one of the things we argued in Alper versus Sahara is we don't know that there's anything wrong with this. This would be a wonderful way to leech out a progressive jackpot that was taken down under the Nevada gaming regulations. Next, in discussing or addressing what the question is, how could it be a crime? It could be a crime because, although to date, from my knowledge, it hasn't been successful, prosecuting a mistake has been undertaken by for example, Illinois and Mississippi, in a case that has some renown in the community called, or involving Randy Binning and the forfeiture or attempted forfeiture of hundreds of thousands of dollars and a connected prosecution with that. He was playing a not a progressive. He was, as I'm surmising here, and I don't know, he was playing a slot machine that had an errant pay schedule that returned huge amounts of money if you switched games in a right sequence. Well, those two prosecutions, for example, in Illinois, I know he was prosecuted for at least state structuring and cheating, and they actually tried the case. Our friend Rob Loeb tried it, and he won solidly and not guilty on everything. But the thing to take away from this is a prosecutor actually looked at it and decided there's enough here to prosecute. Now, Rob got I presume, a unanimous jury verdict saying there's no crime here or no crime committed here. That doesn't mean that other prosecutors aren't going to try it, and it doesn't mean that other juries are going to find the person tried innocent. I understand that the Mississippi case was then dismissed because they looked at the handwriting on the wall and said there's too much uphill for us to win. And besides, why are we helping out? I'm surmising here. Why are we helping out these casinos that can't control their own games? So the takeaway is that, yeah, you can be convicted of a crime. Is it likely? No. Is it worth playing? Depends on what you're getting. And if you are guilty of a crime, then I'm sitting here doing what I say I would not do, which is representing cheaters, and I don't represent cheaters. And the Alper case, for example, was that the casino misprogrammed the machine, okay, through their vendor. And in misprogramming the machine, they're responsible for what they put out there. They published a $100,000 jackpot. They have to pay a $100,000 jackpot because it's not a malfunction. The machine performed exactly as it was required to do under the programming. So it worked perfectly. No malfunction. You said you're going to pay $100,000, pay $100,000. Also, I would point out in that one, that is not only not prosecuted. The Alper decision was not only is there not a crime here, but you actually owe the money. So that's even a step further than the question is. I think your last part of that was, what would you or I do if
the question was to Richard and me. There's two Bobs here. So the question is, so we'll ask Richard first. If you'd have found out in that machine or were told about it, how would you have milked it?
So, first of all, I would not be afraid. I have to say this. My favorite quote from my book, sorry, shameless plug, was from Chip Reese, who said, even though I'm not doing anything wrong, it doesn't mean I won't have to defend myself. So you just have to realize that pretty much in any form of advantage play, just because you're doing something that is legal, that doesn't mean you can't get arrested and have to call Bob Nersesian. Okay, but anyway, if I found this machine, I would not have any fear about being arrested. It could happen, but I would certainly play it. And my strategy would be to get 2 friends, because I don't like to work. I mean, even 8-hour shifts are. So maybe I'd get 3 friends to work 6-hour shifts. And we would play it around the clock until they threw us out or chain or whatever. But there would be one exception there. Because the jackpot is only $1,000, there shouldn't be any hand pay or any W-2. So every time I hit a jackpot, I would cash out the ticket and have a ticket in, ticket out, and then feed some more cash into the machine, and I would collect these $1,000 approximately tickets. And once I got to $9,000, I would be done for the day. And then I would, hopefully they have kiosks where you can cash them out, but I would never win more than 10,000 in a day. So I would have no structuring problems or any of that kind of stuff. And I would play it around the clock for 24 hours a day between the four of us, until they changed the machine. That's how I would approach it.
My approach would be similar to Richard's, except there are casinos where $1,000 payout is a hand pay. They can set hand pays to whatever they want. There are somewhere an $800 jackpot is a hand pay, or $400. So they can set it for whatever they want. So I'm assuming this isn't going to be the case. If this were the case, the jig's going to be up very, very soon, because it gets pretty obvious that all the jackpots are exactly $1,000 and they're happening every 45 minutes, and it becomes real obvious really fast. Now, I remember listening to old Mickey Krim tapes that Montana has an $800 per day jackpot. So I know these things happen. And so I don't know which state this is. You have to assume that the slot director is either in on this, well, not used in the sense in a criminal sense, but aware of what's happening, or extremely asleep at the wheel. Because a machine leaking 30,000 a day or whatever it's going to be, over time is going to kind of become obvious. If it's not, that guy is taking money for not doing his job. So I would play it as long as I could. Part of that may have been, if this is an extremely important casino to me to keep playing at, which is not likely true, but if that were true, that might be different, because this is, at minimum, is going to ruin your welcome at this casino. Most casinos where you end up over a few weeks taking $50,000 out of there, or they lose their sense of humor. But I would play it, and I would hope to be on Richard's list of 4, or he would be on my list of 4, and we would take it as long as it lasted. Actually, Richard might not be on my list of 4, because I'm thinking in terms of video poker players. I don't know if this could have been a slot machine. I don't know what this was. If it is a slot machine, hitting a button for 8 hours a day.
Oh my God, kill me now.
it takes a certain sick person to be able to do this. Now, yes, you're going to get $8,000 or whatever the win is, and but it's like you start questioning yourself. Can I do this? It's not exactly a fun way to do it, but those of us who say, well, I'll do anything for enough money, well, that might get tested on this kind of a deal.
Do you think it would look odd to be reading your Kindle while pushing the button?
Well, what wouldn't look odd, and the way I do it, is there are players with earphones listening to music. Now, that could easily, you can have there's audio versions of Kindle. I do it from the library called Libby. So this is the equivalent of reading your Kindle, except it's an audio book. And that there are players in a casino listening to music on there, and that doesn't look particularly, it's relatively unusual, but it's not shockingly so. All right. Next question.
Can I add a couple things while you went through that?
Sure.
All right. First, where Bob says the slot director is taking money that he's essentially not earning, you may be right in more than one way. If he knows, what if the other guy, as opposed to the person we're talking about here, who's playing this machine the rest of the time, is the slot director's cousin? Okay. This may be something that people within the casino, even executives within the casino, know about, because this is a perfect way to leech out on your accounting paperwork the same kind of green that the mafia would have leached out of Nevada casinos in the 70s.
There was a certain casino owner downtown on Fremont Street that was not at the Golden Nugget, Four Queens, or the Fremont, that would do exactly that. Call his friends in to play off the progressives.
Okay. And then that money is split up, and well, back then it wouldn't really necessarily show up. The other thing is Richard's walking away with $8,000 when he could be walking away with $24,000 a day, from what we're hearing here. And he's doing that to avoid structuring. I don't have an opinion on this, but it seems to me the structuring you're talking about is the casino paying out cash or equivalent in excess of $10,000 to you each day. And they're not filing CTRs, and you are able to get this cash without the casino knowing. One, I don't know if that's structuring because the obligation is the casinos, but two, there is essentially a movement or a practice that is going on now where people are avoiding even the question or hoping to avoid the question. I don't know if it actually works, but they're self-CTRing. They file a cash transaction report that said, I got $26,000 in cash from this casino. You're not going to get a CTR because they don't know it. I know it, and I'm reporting that I did.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
You can't necessarily, but let me ask you, when you come back and get accused of structuring because you're hiding money received, and you say, no, I'm not. I wrote you guys a letter and filed a CTR that told you exactly what I was doing. It's like filing a schedule on an IRS return when you're relying on something that they've said is against their law, against the law, not criminally, but that's not how the tax code works. But you've read it and you've come up with a way where you think, no, you guys are wrong. I'm right. That is how the tax code works. So you file a schedule. You fully explain exactly what you did to come up with the figures that you came up with that are put on the tax return, and you attach that schedule to the tax return. What do you think the IRS does when you do that?
I have no clue.
My experience from talking to other people who have done that is they go, wow, we can go after him under the rule that we believe applies. But if we do that and he wins, there's going to be 400,000 other people that we owe money to. So let Dave do it. Okay. and they just take the schedule and eat it. And I'm not saying that you would be, my point is, who's going to prosecute you for being more than honest?
Oh yeah, no, I'm worried about the casino using it as an excuse to throw me out, right? If
you're not in New Jersey or Missouri or arguably California, they don't need an excuse.
Well, true. Yeah.
So, and they don't discover the CTRs if you're filing it yourself.
Oh, no, that part. I meant about winning. If I win over $10,000.
You just said you and two friends are going to kill the game. They're not going to figure it out. You're there to kill the game.
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes longer than you would imagine.
I know. By splitting up into three. I get it. Okay. Well, sorry to lengthen that out, but
Okay.
Well, don't be sorry.
We have time for one more question today.
It may turn out that we can't end this show. We have to have Bob Nersesian on every week just to get through a few questions, which would actually not be a bad result as far as I was concerned. All right, next question. There was a 10th Circuit Court ruling that says we have the right to record police officers in the course of them doing their duty. Is this established law now? Does it apply anywhere other than in Colorado?
If it's the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, it is definitely established law in the 10th Circuit, which is Colorado plus like 4 other states or 5 other. But the question, I was a little bit surprised at the question. I've talked about, and it's even reported on, a case I did historically called Mills versus Maryland Live, which also involved Anne Arundel County in Maryland. And in that case, the court ruled Mills, and there's a YouTube video on this too, actually surreptitiously recorded the police after he was taken to the back room by the police in order to get his ID, which is false imprisonment, unless there's a crime associated with it. When the police do it, it's a violation of 1983 if they don't have qualified immunity. In the Mills case, which again is reported, the judge ruled that there is a First Amendment right to record police officers doing their job, and you don't even have to let them know you're recording. So that's even a step further than what the 10th Circuit's dealing with. And then on top of that, you have the case of Garicki versus Begin, and that's in the First Circuit, where the First Amendment permits a citizen to record a traffic stop as long as you are not interfering with the police's responsibilities. So I would think that would include surreptitious recording as well. That's a best guess. And then on top of that, there's there are other cases that say so too. This entire philosophy. Oh, and in the Maryland Live case, the statute in Maryland absolutely prohibited surreptitious recording of private conversations. So that's a pretty strong indicator. I have been treating it as if it is established law because I have enough sites on this to say that yes, this is established law, especially if you are overtly recording. And if a police officer comes up to you and says, stop recording, even if it is a permission state versus a non-permission state. By that I mean, in some places you have to include the person you're recording and not in the knowledge of the recording and let them know you're recording before you can do it. But even if that isn't there, I think it's pretty clearly established that, especially with respect to police officers doing their job as police officers, you have an absolute right to record them.
All right, let's move on. If a casino takes your ID after you give it to them for an age check, and then the casino refuses to give it back, saying they believe the ID is fake, what are your rights in that situation?
If the ID is not fake, you can sue them for false imprisonment because there's a whole line of case law that says holding a person's ID requires that they stay present until they can recapture their ID. This is even against cops, and therefore you are holding them against their will when you don't return the ID. That's one thing you could do. The other thing you could do is if it is a fake ID, tip your hat and get the hell out of Dodge. But I say that a bit tongue in cheek, and I'll relay to you something that happened to me. And I don't know if I told this event here before, but I was called out, and goodness gracious, I'm admitting that I essentially do house calls. Yeah, Richard, I saw the shake of your head.
Unheard of. Doctors don't do that. Now lawyers do it.
Well, it wasn't a house call. I got called out to a major strip casino by an advantage gambler who was playing for a jackpot that was upside down, hit the jackpot. I'm talking tens and tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, much closer to 100 than to 20. He hit that jackpot. He showed what purported to be a Florida driver's license to cash out, but with his proper social security number. So for the CTR. In any event, they looked at it and they said, really, you don't have three eyes on a real driver's license, and they called the police. So the police show up, and he's already called me, and I show up too. And the police are holding him, and they are looking for a statute to prosecute him under for having this Florida driver's license. I intervened, and I'm talking to the police, and they finally say, look, it's a fake driver's license. That's not a crime. I saw this coming, and I showed up with the actual statute that says that it is a crime to have a fake driver's license. And that is a crime. The problem was something that purports to be a Florida driver's license in Nevada is not a driver's license. The statute expressly states that a driver's license is a document issued by the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles to authorize you to drive on the roads of the state of Nevada. And I showed him that statute, and I said, and he's holding the Florida driver's license, and I said, the cop is, and I said, that's not a driver's license. He didn't commit this crime. Right within the criminal framework, it says it has to be issued by the Nevada DMV. This cop freaked out and got on the phone with his sergeant, and things are going on away from me, which is often the case when I'm involved at this level. And about 15 minutes later, this officer walks back in and he says, okay, they're going to escort your client to the cashier and give him his money. He is 86th from this property, and I can't believe I'm doing this. And he handed the driver's license back to me. And then he says, we did put a hole in it, though. Okay. And if you got a problem with that, you got to deal with that, because we understand your technicality. Is that ever going to happen again? I sure can't say it will. It did happen that time. Like Richard said a few minutes ago, just because you can show that you're doing something right doesn't mean that you're not going to be, what's the word? I forgot what you said. But yeah, this is a perfect example of somebody who could ordinarily go to jail. I think I saved him from that and got him his payment. But it's that whole false ID thing. And it's not false ID. I explained to the police officer that it's an alias ID. And as you two know, there is no law that says you have to conduct business under your real name. You can conduct business under any name you choose. And more importantly, I've got two Federal Circuit Court of Appeals cases that specifically say the entire idea of a real name is a misnomer. And there's no such thing as a real name. There is a name, and it is whatever you're going by at that moment. Again, the authorities don't buy that until you get to the level of the Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's $100,000 into keeping yourself out of jail. So there you are.
All right, we're gonna have some commercials, because I'm afraid that the next question we ask Bob is going to be the last one we have time for. And also, listening to Bob's dog, my comment is, whatever you charge this guy for your house call was well worth it. All right, so Richard, lead us off into commercials, please.
Okay. If you're serious about card counting, the Blackjack Apprenticeship membership is a great way to learn, train, network, and get the resources you need to succeed. We've had quite a few guests on Gambling with an Edge who exclusively trained and got their start through Blackjack Apprenticeship. Check out the website at blackjackapprenticeship.com. They have member forums, training software, and guides to help you learn. That's blackjackapprenticeship.com, and you will find a link in the show notes.
Videopoker.com is the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the Gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the games. The game of the week is Double Super Times Pay, which required 7 coins per line to play. You receive a 1 in 15 chance to get a 2 times to 10 times multiplier on the deal, and a second 1 in 15 chance of getting a 2 times to 10 times multiplier on the draw. If you receive 2 multipliers, say 3x and 4x, they are added together, making 7x, not multiplied, making 12x. If you get a dealt royal flush, there is still a 1 in 15 chance to get a multiplier. But if you do, that multiplier is always 20x for the deal and the draw. The strategy on the game is, the return on the game is approximately 0.5% more than the base game, and no strategy deviations are required to play this game. However, it will feel like it is a lot tighter than 0.5% over the base game, because this dealt royal with the 20x multiplier has to be accounted for, and so it's going to take a drag on there, because when it comes out, it's a big hit, because this is a multi-line game, and so it happens rarely. But the dealt royal is 1 in 650,000, and it's still 1 in 15. So we're looking at 1 in 10 million, but it's a real big jackpot when you hit this 1 in 10 million shot.
Everyone seems to be talking about sports betting lately. If you're looking to learn more about how you can profit from the sports betting gold rush, then unabated.com is a great resource. Founded by frequent Gambling with an Edge guests, Captain Jack and Rufus Peabody, Unabated has free educational articles and an odds screen to help you shop lines. If you bet props, their Essentials tier has projections and simulators you won't find anywhere else. Premium tier membership adds an array of pricing calculators, in-game tools, and the most advanced real-time odds screen available. Take a trial run with their tools to decide if unabated.com is right for you.
All right, we're back to Bob Nersesian. Assuming you're a patron playing on credit, can a Vegas casino refuse to cash your chips if you have an outstanding marker?
Oh, that's the end of the question? I see. It's a two-parter. All right. Well, addressing that one the way it was asked, the answer is it depends, and my best guess is probably.
And the second part of the question
is because you are playing, or that marker is essentially it is, although it's not a negotiable instrument because it is supported by a gambling debt, it is in the nature of a negotiable instrument, and that negotiable instrument on its face is a call instrument. They can essentially call the payment at any time, and that's what the writing shows. And I don't know how you get around them saying you have to pay this now. If they did actually give you something in writing that says that your due date on the marker is 30 days hence, then that's problematic. But from what I've seen of markers, this is usually something between you and your host, and it's not ordinarily put in writing, although there is a pattern in practice that shows that your markers were always 30 days. I do know some circumstances where the markers were put in jeopardy because, let me give you an example, the gambler found himself indicted and all his property seized. Okay, and the casino went, uh-oh. And they called all the markers at once. And which, were I a casino, that's exactly what I'd do. There didn't appear to be a legal defense to the debt, including it's not due yet, because all the paperwork which supported it said we're calling it and you have to pay.
All right. Next question. You've been clear, Bob Nersesian, that we have very few rights in Indian casinos. But something I haven't heard anyone talk about is getting pulled over on the road, on the reservation, by tribal police. Is that any different from being stopped by state or local police?
I think the answer is it depends. It depends on whether or not under the code or the laws of the tribe, if you're on tribal lands, whether or not the traffic offense is a civil offense or a criminal offense. And it's my understanding from the work I've done to date, and I can't guarantee this in the circumstance you're talking about, but Indian tribes, despite their sovereignty, have absolutely no criminal jurisdiction over a non-Indian on tribal lands. At that point, their responsibility is to bring in the criminal authorities from the surrounding municipalities, localities, or state. So if it's criminal, and they aren't literally holding you, I'm not advising this, but my best guess would be that you could ignore that process, and you don't have to show up for even the appearance date that's on the ticket. But if you were actually speeding, pay the ticket. I'm also pretty sure that you don't get points on your driver's license for getting a tribal ticket.
Yeah, I don't know if this was a speeding thing. I mean, I don't know about this case in particular, but, you know, I had a situation where a friend of mine and I were leaving a tribal casino, and the tribal police pulled me over, claimed I didn't stop at a stop sign, which was totally bullshit, and went around to the passenger seat and asked my passenger for his ID. They were more interested in him than they were me. And, you know, he just said, I don't have one. And there wasn't really much they could do. They didn't.
Did they ticket you for running the stop sign?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, I think basically they just wanted us to know, like, we know we don't want you here. We're just letting you know that, you know, we know you left because we were putting heat on you, and we're going to flex our power a little bit to try to show you.
Okay.
And you got the message loud and clear.
True.
And then turning to a case called Pister versus Garcia, at least in the Ninth Circuit, if you prove all of that up, you could sue those two cops for falsely imprisoning you, i.e. you were actually innocent, and they knew you were innocent, but they did it just to persecute you or your passenger as an advantaged gambler. That could be false imprisonment with all its attendant punitive damages and everything else. But here's the rules. You only sue the cops that stop you. As soon as you name the casino or the tribe as a defendant or the police department, you lose. Because at those points, you're going after the tribal treasury, and the Indian sovereignty protects them. But if you just sue the police officer under, at least in the Ninth Circuit, you should be correct and can still have your constitutional rights protected.
Are you likely to get anything?
Read Pister versus Garcia. It's published in the Ninth Circuit.
Okay.
It's
Can you give us a synopsis of how
Well,
much
it was
you got?
pretty clear they were cheating by using a computer inside a plastic donkey that was sitting on the slot machine. We've had them on, Bob Dancer. We've had them on the show and talked about this case a lot. This was the one in Arizona.
Yep. All right.
so give the show number so they go back and
Well,
watch it, Richard.
I'll
and then
I'll dig it up and put it
you
in the
gotta
show
do
notes.
it right now because
I actually
then
in a post.
you get all that extra. What is it? What's that organization that pays you guys money for being on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
I'm
I
kidding.
guess. Yeah.
I don't know if you're part of it.
Yeah. But I did have a
Yeah.
post. I posted a picture of that donkey. Years ago. So, but we'll put a link to it.
Yes, I remember that case now. Did not remember the name of it. Last question.
Bob Nersesian is holding up a plastic bag full of little plastic donkeys.
Uh-huh. Has there been a class action suit?
We got enough money that these are my favorite toys in the world.
Well, yeah, quit rattling
And
the
I went
bag
out
while
and
you
bought
talk
them
about
just
them.
'cause I could. Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been a class action suit against any casino that forces you to go to the cage to cash in a ticket worth less than $1, or that asks you if you'd like to donate your winnings? Do you think it'd be a good class action case?
No, I think it'd be a god-awful class action case. You can still
So
get your money by going to the cage, right?
Yeah.
You gotta go to the cage, cash out a chip, right?
Yeah.
What are they doing that they can't do? One and two.
So the fact that you can't cash it out at the kiosk, which is you can normally cash the dollar amounts of your ticket at kiosk, but not the pennies part of it.
Many
That's the
places
part
still
that-
do pennies, though, too, right?
I'm sorry?
Many places
Oh.
still do it down to nickels, right?
Well, no, they'll go down to pennies. So if your ticket is for $23.17, the machine will spit out the $23 and you'll get a ticket for 17 cents that says some places it's actually a ticket you can put back into another machine, and other places it's a receipt that you have to take to the cage to cash if you want it cashed.
Okay.
And apparently this
They
annoys
makes their rules.
Yeah, it's an annoying.
They could kick you out a ticket and make you go to the cage for the whole ticket and not even provide you a kiosk. Couldn't they?
Yeah, like the old days. That's what you had to do.
Yeah, I'm not seeing this. I understand the concept, but I'm not seeing it. And you think that the casino's just taking the money, but I think that the casino has a strong argument, especially since they're already in the example you gave, possibly donating it to charity by accumulating it and then dealing with it that way. This is not something that they're doing under a profit motive. This is something they're doing under a cost-saving motive, and I don't understand why they couldn't save the costs associated with transactions with those small amounts. Also, if we're really dealing with pennies, I understand that pennies, nickels, and dimes are not even legal tender any longer.
You know, on that, since you brought that up, how do places get away with saying we will not accept cash? You must pay with a credit card. How is that legal?
I don't know. And I've talked about this on the show before too. It says they can define however they want to transact with anyone. But it does say right on every bill you have that this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Okay? So that would seem to be a dictate to people acting in society within the United States that this has to be means of exchange that you will accept. I don't know that that's ever been litigated, but where I've brought it up is right there on the face of it. It says all debts public and private. What the hell are these money laundering statutes? Why in God's name do they get to create money that is not legal tender by saying it's in a private transaction that we don't appreciate? They already told you on the front side, it's all debts, public and private. It doesn't say all legal debts. It doesn't say all debts supporting a legal transaction. It says all debts. The whole money laundering thing. My God, you want to do your police work? Don't track my wallet. Put a tail on me, follow me, see what I'm doing, and if I am doing anything nefarious, arrest me. In the meantime, though, they've created this whole circumstance where you get people prosecuted and going to jail and money being seized just because they can, and nobody's stopping them.
And
yes, Richard, legal tender is ripe for somebody to take it up. We're at 27. I had this idea. I might devote the next 30 years of my life incidentally to doing this, but you're not going to have any legs on this for decades, because that's how representing advantaged gamblers has worked as well. Progress is incremental.
Okay. We're going to call it quits today. There's lots more questions for Bob Nersesian. If we can get him back before we end the program, that would be a joy for both Richard and me. If we cannot get him back, Bob Nersesian, we want to thank you for helping make our show valuable information and disseminating a lot of very useful information to a whole lot of players. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me again. And I do want to point out that being on your show, I'm sorry your show's disappearing, but being on it has been wonderful. And I'm even more blessed, though, that you guys are my friends, not people I talk to on the radio.
Wow, thank you.
Back at you. And yes, among his many benefits for being on the show is he's now a member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame, which would not have happened had he not been on the show. So he gets.
I don't know that we can take credit for that.
Richard, how long has the show been on?
12 years.
Okay, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013 for stuff I did in 2012, which was 11 years ago. What was your...
Yeah, exactly. What was your role in that, Bob? Dancer?
At the end of our show, we have a recommended. Richard, do you have any recommended for our audience this week?
Yeah, well, staying on theme, my recommended is Bob Nersesian did a video interview with Colin Jones from Blackjack Apprenticeship. And it's on YouTube, and we will put a link in the show notes. And it's a great interview, and it's even better. I don't know, because of the video, there's something makes it more immediate. I love the way Bob Nersesian at one point just turns straight into the camera and says, "Because casinos lie." Yeah, you just had me laughing, Bob. So yeah, I highly recommend it to anybody who listens to this. Really good.
So my recommended today is a John Grisham novel that came out about the time Bob Nersesian was becoming a member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame. It is called The Reckoning. It is a legal thriller. It's also a murder mystery. It's a courtroom drama, family saga, coming-of-age story, a war period piece. It is a lot in there, and it's a long book, and I was quite absorbed with it. Part of it is it takes place shortly after World War II, where a war hero comes home, finds his wife was messing around, and takes justice into his own hands, and things that develop. So it's an interesting period piece taking place in Mississippi in late 1940s. It touches straight on the difference between blacks and whites in that era. It was quite fascinating to me, The Reckoning. Bob Nersesian, do you have a recommended for our audience this week?
If you want to read this, look, I'll just follow on your shirt tails there, Bob, and talk about there's a lot of us who grew up on science fiction and read it religiously, and still do, and then reread stuff from when we were younger, including the juvenile fiction. And one of the top writers is Robert A. Heinlein. I'm sure that's not a surprise to either of you, but there's a bunch of younger people coming into the world right now who are probably listening to this as well and don't know Heinlein. I've read all of Heinlein, but that's what I do is I read authors too. I've read all of Leon Uris and others like that, and I Michener, I can recommend every one of them. But turning to Robert Heinlein, there was a book that just kicked me in the stomach because it was pre-woke, pre-racial, what have you, and it has incredibly strange overtones. It's not particularly racist or anything like that, but if you read it, you'll sit there and wonder, how could this have ever been written? And it's a book called Farnham's Freehold. Richard, you shook your head a little bit. You know it?
No, I don't. I certainly know Heinlein. I always pronounce it Heinlein. But no, that one I don't know.
Take a look at it. It's pretty weird. It's a post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear war, 100 years in the future, and the people controlling the world. It essentially recognizes the racism of the late 50s when he wrote it, but it turns it on its head, and it talks about the human condition, if you will, and the racism is still there, but the controlling world powers are now Afrocentric because the nuclear wars didn't do that, and now the racism is back, but it's entirely reversed. It's very strange.
Sounds interesting. Thank you, Bob Nersesian. Thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.